Greetings, greetings to all. I am Noble Gavin Matthews Bay, coming to you live here on the Dr. Matthews Bay Unfiltered. I want to welcome all those Aboriginal brothers and sisters, and I want to encourage you to share the live. To my brothers and sisters who are Moors, I am encouraging you to also share the live. Share the live. This evening, I want to discuss the Constitution. And the reason why I am discussing the Constitution this evening, it is because I would like members of the general public of the Corporation of Guyana, those who are Guyanese living in the Corporation of Guyana, especially in the outer boundaries of Guyana, like Suriname, Venezuela, Brazil, the Caribbean Isles, and the diaspora, to share this live tonight. I'm going to go a little extra time tonight also too, because I would like you to call in. I would like you to use the number at the bottom of your screen, +1 917 334 4206, and it's a WhatsApp number. Be a part of this discussion because it's important. The thing about this discussion this evening is that it is so important that on the 28th of last month and also on the 30th of last month, if I'm correct, there were two specific court cases. One of them went to the Caribbean Court of Justice on the ruling of who are electors and credible electors in the majority. It was so confusing that I was trying to grapple my mind around it. Then there was a ruling by the appellate court, or you call it the Court of Appeal, where the ruling was that Order 60, it is not Constitution. Order 60, if to those who are looking can observe, Order 60 is not part of the Constitution, right? Order 6 is not part of the Constitution, but Order 60 is acceptable by the courts because of a specific ruling by the courts. And why do I say specific ruling by the courts? I need you to listen very carefully tonight to those who are looking. There was a huge deliberation of 172, 174B, Article 72 and Article 74B of the Constitution, Articles 99, and Articles 22 of the Representation of the People's Act. And this deliberation went into a process where 3 judges went in accordance of And if I strongly believe they went in accordance of the Caribbean Court of Justice. And in the Caribbean Court of Justice, I can remember when they were saying Article 60, it's a different electoral constitution. As a matter of fact, Order 6, not article. Order 60 was a different electoral constitution. In the ruling by the appellate court, it is recognized that Order 60 is a separate electoral constitution. Order 60 came about because of a disagreement of declaration of District Number 4, which is Region 4, where the majority of the population is. Listen, Order 60, and the reason why I'm starting from that particular point of view, came about because of the disagreement of the declaration of District Number 4, which is Region 4. So the chief elections officer, by way of the constitution of his office, declared the declaration by these 10 electoral districts. In the declaration, a confusion occurred because of another party who wasn't accepting the results. A recount of District Number 4, according to law, according to your Constitution of the Corporation of Guyana, supposed to happen before a declaration if the Constitution says if there's a discrepancy of the report that came out of the declaration by these polling stations, a recount is warranted via a resident magistrate. The problem is with the resident magistrate is that the resident magistrate is an elected individual. So one, you don't have a resident magistrate. You have a magistrate that is appointed. That's one. Number two, the declaration was already declared, so you cannot go back into a recount, because remember now they were talking about a recount. If the declaration is already declared by law, that is a phase for the elections court, which is an elections petition. A lot of people don't like me to talk about these things, but it's happening before your eyes, guys. The ruling of these particular discrepancies and these particular position that oppresses the vote, because they're oppressing the vote. And I'm going to tell you why they're oppressing the vote. So now, Claudette Singh created Order 60 because by law, she is now the person who takes charge of that electoral process and makes decisions outside of the parliament. That's why Order 60 was created, to be a part of the electoral law of the 2nd March 2020. She created that order so you can have now what you call a national recount. In the national recount, there was a declaration again by the chief elections officer after the national recount stating, can you remember, that this is the observation that you had valid votes and invalid votes, votes that cannot be counted as recognizable or unrecognizable, and then you had ballots that were left over that was not casted into votes. Claudette Singh directed the chief elections officer to go back and tally all the votes that were cast, whether they were invalid or valid. Remember her instructions to go back and to tally all the votes that were cast. This was challenged, that decision was challenged to the High Court. And the High Court made it clear and made it known that she, by law, by the Constitution that governs the electoral responsibility, has the right as the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission of Commissioners. By law, she has the right to instruct the CEO to do as she feels pleased or fit to do. So it was passed, it was deliberated, it went before the courts, and the courts ruled in favor of the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission of Commissioners, that she was in her constitutional rights. After that report was submitted, a declaration has been now occurred where Mr. Afrod Ali was sworn in as president, as the de facto president of the Corporation of Guyana, because at the end of the day, he was never declared by the returning officers of the 10 electoral district that his party has won outright. He was declared by the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission as the person who, as the party who had won the regional general elections 2020. They just used the CEO's position as declared, because remember, now the High Courts are saying that the central the chief elections officer, which is Mr. Keith Lowenfield's position, was to adhere to the instructions of the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission, because she is his boss. And he had to adhere to that because that was his requirement, to adhere to the instructions. So all this narrative that was created by the People's Progressive Terrorist Party about SOPs and SOPs, they knew at the end of the day the SOPs makes no sense. And the reason why the SOPs makes no sense, it is because it is not used now in the declaration. The statement of polls were never used. It was a recount information of all ballots cast, not valid votes, but all ballots cast. This is where vote suppression or suppressing of the vote now comes in. Now, The Caribbean Court of Justice passed their judgment on the 28th of this month, last month, based upon a constitutional body that was elected but isn't elected, and who are elected members of parliament. I don't know where the legal term came about, or who processed that legal term, or what was taken out and what was added in. What I do know is that the information that was given out in the ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice was making no sense at all, because I'm trying to still grasp on the ruling. But it referred the matter back to the appellate court, in which now the appellate court now passed a ruling upon the declaration of the March 2nd, 2020 regional and general elections. This is the destructive part. The destructive part is that now you're actually telling the Guyanese people, the High Court, with those three judges, the appellate court with those three judges that are sitting on it, are now telling the Guyanese people that if you go to the polls next year coming, because next year is supposed to be an election, it's supposed to happen this year, but I don't know since when Barra Jack Dio can declare when elections supposed to happen. Elections supposed to happen this year, the month of October, before the US elections. By the way, that's a different story. So he's now saying, the appellate court is now saying that if the 10 returning officers of the 10 electoral districts tallies the votes, what is valid and what is invalid, based upon the SOPs, and please remember, the only person that can declare SOPs is the Guyana Elections Commission, because they have the original SOPs. So please go and tell the PPTP, the People's Progressive Terrorist Party, if they want the original SOPs, let them go to the Guyana Elections Commission, because they have it under a vault locked up. Now, are you trying to tell the Guyanese people that if the 10 returning officers of the 10 electoral districts returns a tally of declaration and declared it to the chief elections officer, that the APNU AFC has won the electoral regional and general elections by so many votes, and out of the 6 commissioners that sits on the Guyana Elections Commission, along with Claudette Singh, let us use the PPP part, that sits on the Guyana Elections Commission, disagrees with the tally of votes. Are you trying to tell me now the chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission can see it within her rights to disenfranchise all those who had voted and say to the Guyanese public, well, look, since this is the case, I'm taking away you who had voted, your rights of those who had voted, and now say to the Guyanese public, I am going to tally it my way. And when I say it the way how I am seeing it, then I'm going to declare who is the winner. So if there are fraudulent behavior pattern, like rigging, that occurred, that also too is counted. Are you telling me that? Because Remember, it was the same recount process that the Guyanese public get to know that the PPP couldn't give an account for 17,000 plus ballot because it didn't have the furnishing document to verify, to validify those votes, to make it valid votes. Are you trying to tell me that this process can occur again? The Ghana Elections Commission, the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission of Commissioners, can create another order in disenfranchising Guyanese who had voted? Are you trying to tell me that she is within her rights to do so? Because that's what the court is now telling you Guyanese. You know, I can't sit down and pretend or fail to see what has happened. I'm in clear view of what disenfranchisement is. Because if you're disenfranchising all those who lined up to vote on elections day of March 2nd, 2020, and you now telling them that their votes, along with votes that cannot be verified, are valid. So the party who had won with the majority votes, which is the APNU AFC, now cannot represent the general public that they stood up and voted for. That is clear disenfranchisement. I don't know what's going on with the High Court. Something is definitely wrong. First, it was Roxanne George Wilkshire, and now it is the appellate court. Well, you know, you can't blame the first two judges. Both of them looks like, well, look, yeah, they in for the PPP. So you already know, well, your brother, if both of them says no by majority, even if the other judge who's chairman, who's the president for the appellate court can say no, she still has to pass. She still has to pass the agreement of there's a majority of vote that says, no, this is not law. Now you can imagine, you know, this thing is so disrespectful. I don't even know what to say. The appellate courts are now telling Guyanese that the chief elections officer and the declarations of the chief elections officer and the constitution that surrounds the office of the chief elections officer is invalid. And he's now guided under the directions of the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission. That's the ruling. I don't know how many of you sat down and listened to the ruling of the appellate court in that particular position. Now they're trying to say that if there was invalid votes and the validity of the votes, that is a matter for an elections court. But before the recount took place, it was a matter for the elections court. It is you, Claret Singh, who created Order 60 and disenfranchised Guyanese voters, and you trying to tell me, the court is trying to tell me that you can do it again? Because that's what the Constitution says. The Constitution says if someone of the parties is uncomfortable of the 10 declared regions, nothing cannot be done, but the only thing can be done is based upon the declaration of the chief elections officer to the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission to declare the declared votes of the 10 returning the declared tallies of the 10 returning officers. That is the constitution of the office of which is the chief elections officer. Now you're trying to tell me that the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission of Commissioners can now invalidate the declaration of the chief elections officer, well, then there's no reason for the chief elections officer. There's no reason for the 10 declared returning 10 returning officer. I mean, come on, let's look at it in the smartest way possible. There's no reason. It makes no sense. I don't know why, but it doesn't. If the chief elections officer cannot work according to his office, the constitution of his office, well, it makes no sense he declare an election. It makes no sense you have 10 returning officers. Why don't you, as the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission of Commissioners, take away the 10 returning officers, take away the CEO, the chief election officer, take away those positions, and just work upon a declaration of SOPs, statement of polls, and that's it. Because if you're now disenfranchising the majority votes that voted for the APNU AFC, because that was a declaration, that was the very first one, are you trying to tell me now that you have the power to do not listen to the choice of the people? Are you trying to tell me now you're getting rid, or that you're high above the representation of the People's Act? You're above the law? Are you trying to tell me? Are you trying to tell those, who are Guyanese from the appellate court? Are you trying to say to the appellate court, is the appellate court trying to tell Guyanese that at the end of the day, the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission of Commissioners has all right to disenfranchise valid voters? Are you trying to tell me that? And to sit down and do as he or she pleases? Because that's what the declaration is all about. And when you got the declaration and you got the court ruling, who's trying to tell me that Claudette Singh is above the law, she can do and say what she wants to, well, then there's no reason for a CEO. Don't have a CEO. Don't have 10 declaring officers of 10 districts. Just put one thing on in a box and shake it up, and that's it. Whatever you pull out first, that's it, because that is what you're trying to show me. That's what you're trying to show Guyanese. And these Guyanese that we got, man, y'all for real. Y'all for real, brother. All the big wind up and dig down and shoot down and party and the entertainment. These people are taking your rights away from you every single day. Oh my gosh. These people taking away your rights, people. These people are disenfranchising you. This is what you call electoral fraud that is going on right now. This is the disrespect. And I'm serious. This is what you guys got to endure, people. The courts is trying to tell you that you have no rights anymore. When you go and vote now is a waste of time. Because the chief elections officer has more rights, more than you. She could now sit down there and define the fact that, well, look, you know who you vote for. You ain't got no sense at all. So I'm going to declare who I think is better for the position as president of the corporate Republic of Guyana. That is what is happening. And you could imagine these people are so combined together to take away your rights. You got Jonas, you got Afrod and Jagdeo, you got Nandalal. You have all these people who ain't look like you, plus Claudette Singh. I tell you already, the PPP has no voting constituency. They have lost it. They don't got people to vote for them. They have lost the people who used to vote for them, move out and gone overseas, pack up the traps and beat out because they realize there's no good in the PPP. Now they're trying to infringe you, who are the majority now. You, the Aboriginal man. Who is the majority? They're trying to infringe upon you and take away your rights as a voter. And they're using the courts to declare it. Look, you can imagine the courts now has to declare the authority of the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission, wiping away the Representation of the People's Act, to tell you that ROPA has no sense where and has no validity when the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission rules. Because Order 60 Order 60 does not fit into ROPA. ROPA has the clear constitutional declaration of how an election is supposed to happen. The Representation of the People's Act. When I say ROPA, that's what I mean. Now they're trying to tell you that she can disenfranchise anybody and declare who she thinks is fit and proper. I presume that was the thing that they were using. Can you imagine that, Guyanese? Guyanese, can you imagine that? Can you imagine they're using this particular manner to validify their oppression, their voter suppression? Can you imagine? I really wanted to know these two judges that sits on the appellate court. They have the audacity, and I'm talking about the two East Indian ones. They have the audacity to tell me in their ruling that because the Caribbean Court of Justice said X, Y, and Z, they're in their propelled rights to give you their understanding, their judgment based upon a similar judgment that happened in India. One is in 1995 and one is in 1970 somebody. And they're using the same scenarios to tell you about the different judgments in the same manner. They're using that to bring to the high courts to tell you this is how they have acquired their judgments on the case. Man, you study about the craziness that goes on. This is crazy. This is downright crazy. Guyanese, let's be fair. I want you to tell me, even if you don't want to call me and say it, I want you to tell me, put it in a message. Does it make sense after these two rulings does it make sense to have a chief elections officer and 10 returning officers? Does it make sense? Does it make sense at all to have elections based upon a constitutional agreement because there's instructions within the constitution of how you run an election? Does it make sense to have a chief elections officer when you're disregarding the constitution of the office of the chief elections officer? Because suddenly you find that there's a complaint of discrepancy. The law says if you find a discrepancy within any electoral process, that is a matter for the elections court, not Order 60. No, Order 60 becomes an electoral constitution because it was done by the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission of Commissioners. You can imagine that, yeah? I'm beginning to scratch my head on a lot of things. Really. I'm beginning to scratch my head on a lot of things. And you know what? Just now, the court thing will make sense because they're packing the courts up with their own kind of people. So you, who's the black man, can't have proper representation because you're not worthy to have representation. There's no worth. Any representation is entertainment, rum drinking, wine and go down, an artiste. Any representation is 94.1 Hot FM. You're worthy of legal justice and representation within the legal formalities. As you ain't got judges to represent you in case that the judgment of one judge goes indirect and you have another judge to debunk or to debunk them. They ain't got the kind of system no more. They're filling up the benches with their people. And believe you me, this is the beginning of voter suppression. Y'all really want this? This is what y'all really want? Ask yourself, if this is what you really want, people, you could imagine you know telling the Guyanese people that Order 60 is functional. It is law. It's a new electoral law. That's what you know telling the Guyanese people. And they don't have to sit down and swallow it. That's your judgment. I presume that there is appeal to the Caribbean Court of Justice. Again. But I'm trying to tell you this is where it's left for you to go now, Guyanese. They don't have any respect. For you, they don't. They don't want you. They don't like you. And then you're the majority. A set of black people is the majority now. Because you ain't got constituencies, so they're going to disenfranchise you. And you live in fear because you don't want to step up and to let your voice be heard. You live in fear. You study if you're going to lose your job. You ain't going to get to eat tomorrow. You live in fear because your boss doesn't represent your interests, your culture, your values. You got to represent the values of the PPP. You're living in fear. And then you ain't got no way to turn but to the entertainment section. You got to drink to ease your mind. You have to consume alcohol and consume the Mali and consume the pills so you can ease the oppressive man in which you're now living under. Yes. And you know what? To those who are supposed to be representing you, like they end up on the block. No, they're not in the block. You know? They're not on that block at all. Yes. Okay. I'm a bit okay. Yes, it's back on. All right. Sorry about that. I had some problems with the camera just now, and I had to get that solved. So now I'm back live. I think yes, people are seeing. Yes, you get to view the live feed. So as I was continuing, now is this the way the electoral process is going to work for you, the Guyanese people? Is this what you want? Is this the the mannerable thing to do because you can't help yourself? You ain't got no proper elected representative to represent you legally. There's no justice in the system that can suppress your vote. There's nothing that you can apply for. You can't appeal for anything because if you go to the court is packed with their own people that you can't have proper representation. You know, how is it to go in front of a judge and the judge ain't looking like you at all, but you ain't got your culture, you ain't got nothing. And when the judge open his mouth, he's sounding like the PPP. Well, you can get some fair judgment. I'm trying to find out how can you really get some kind of fair judgment in that particular aspect, you know? And one gotta ask, is it really fair to say that there's no justice in a system that is so bent on taking away your civil rights, your right to vote, your right to choose somebody of your own choice? Are they trying to say to you, well, look, AP and UPNC ain't the right type of party to represent you, only the PPP? Because that's what is done. That's what they're doing presently. you know, and it's a rough thing. It's a rough assessment because there's no representation. There's nothing. You can't stand up and say to these people, well, look, I want my own representation. I want to face my own judgment because they're packing the courts up with the people who they think that they can have a good assessment of the law through them. Because remember, a judge in the appellate court or in the high court give their judgment based upon their assessment of the law. Remember that. And if you can find cases in point to represent your argument as a lawyer, the judges now will have to go and do a review and then still give their assessment based upon the law. And if you look at the two East Indian judges that gave their own judgment based upon their own assessment, it's based upon Order 60 that has no validity. Order 60 which is unconstitutional. Order 60 becomes constitutional because the direction. Remember, it's not written that Order 60 is there, but it becomes valid. It becomes a valid. It becomes a valid. It becomes a valid action because the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission, by the Constitution, is been given that authority to make such decisions. Hold on. Yes, she's been given that authority to make such decisions. And that authority takes away your voting rights. That authority takes away the right to empower your community by the people you elected. And they're operating under such authority until now. They're taking away your rights, people. I don't know what else to say to you. But if you keep up at this rate, if you keep up at this rate that you're going right now, you don't got no rights. And then you're so afraid to speak out. You're so afraid to challenge them because you see no representation. You see none at all. And the people who you choose to represent you, they're telling you that those people can't represent you. You know? Yeah. This is what they're trying to tell you. The people who you choose to represent you, the people who you elect to represent you, they're trying to tell you, oh no, these people has no authority to represent you. The Constitution, brothers and sisters, of the Corporate Republic of Guyana needs to be upheld. And the only way it can happen is when you make your voice be heard. The only way it can happen is when you stand up and tell the judges, the court system, take heed and pay obedience to the Constitution, which was designed for you to interpret in its fullness, not to you to give your perceptions. And that is what is happening. Now, they're actually saying to you, it doesn't matter if you bring a CEO right now. It doesn't matter with the declaration of the CEO. It doesn't matter of the declaration of the 10 returning officers. All that matters is the chief elections officer, which the CEO falls under his or her directions. So if the CEO tells the chief elections officer this will happen after the recount, when the CEO instructed the chief elections officer to go and tally all votes, whether valid or invalid, all votes. That means all the votes that were counted, all the ballots that were counted as votes, not valid votes, but as votes. Go and tally them. And then bring the declaration to me. That is what happened. You remember the instructions of Claudette Singh to the chief elections officer? I remembered it. I remember the instructions. And the instructions still stand. He went, he brought the tallies, and these minions with the PPP got can't remember the part. They run around the place still adding but SOPs. The SOPs are there, but it's invalid. Now the question is, why are the SOPs invalid? Why are they invalid? They're invalid. This because if you can declare an elections that is different, if you can declare an elections on a recount that is different from the standard SOPs that you have in your possessions, Claudette Swing, that you have in your possessions, if the recount is different, as a matter of fact, not if, the recount is different from the SOPs that you have in your possession, and you declare a winner, well, then the SOPs and the votes that bring about the SOPs are invalid. The declaration by the 10 electoral districts are invalid. The CEO is invalid. That's the fact. I mean, they're like the part, they're running from it. But this is the fact. I don't know how best other people can interpret it. I don't know how best the other lawyers are interpreting it as I speak. But it is a destructive element. Because how can you tell Guyanese that it doesn't matter where you go and vote? It doesn't matter who you vote for. At the end of the day, it's based upon my instructions. Because that's the declaration of the court. That's a judgment of the court, the appellate court. Telling Guyanese that although you voted, the only person that has the power to declare her mind, remember, like Miss Wilkshire, by my mind, by her mind, who, on which party has the most votes. That's what it's coming down to, and that is what this next election is coming to. So it doesn't matter which party is asking for, what is it again? The different differentiation of changing electoral laws, updating the list of electors, and the list is padded. It doesn't matter anymore. Because you can have a padded or unpadded list. It is based upon the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission and her thoughts and her mind. So it's the chairperson and the 3 commissioners that represents the PPP. That is what you're going into elections right now, guys. I mean, it's sad to say that, but that's what the court is actually telling you. So you have to sit down now and digest upon it and realize your infringement, because they're infringing upon your rights. They're taking away your rights to vote, because that's what the court is doing now. They're taking away your rights to vote for the party of your choice and the party's presidential candidate to run the elections. That's what they're doing. And you're sitting down there enjoying yourselves, huh? You're sitting down there going to, what do you got tonight? Building Expo. Such craftiness, huh? And when they're done, they can bring another artist, and you're going to bubble down nice. You can drink and you can feel high, and you can go in your bed and enjoy yourself and tell yourself, well, you had a wonderful day yesterday. Whilst they're taking away your civil liberties, taking away your rights to vote for a party of your choice, taking away your rights to freedom, to be a free people, to enjoy your choices. They're taking those rights away, and they're giving it to another set of people. That's what they're doing. It's sad to say that this is the position we're at right now. And if you don't watch yourself, Guyanese, you mightn't got an election. You might have to wear in a declaration by the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission. It's like you went to vote and you're trying to tell, let me hear what's up on your mind. Who you gonna put now in place as president? Or which party you going to put in place? Yes. That's Claudette Singh's position right now. I can't hide it. What do you think she's going to do next? Whatever she says doesn't make any sense anymore, because you're trying to tell me that whatever she says is law. She doesn't have to be guided by anybody anymore. Whatever she says is law. And whatever she says stands in court, because the court upholds Order 60. The court bring Order 60 into the electoral process of March 2nd, 2020. That means if you watch out, they might get another Order 60 in March 2nd, 2025. Because that is what we're looking at. Constitutional law is a messed up thing. Eh? The interpretation of the Constitution is another messed up thing. Because when you depend upon people now to defend your rights as a voter, they can't defend it. You got the judges telling them, they went and vote, but that's okay. It doesn't mean that you voted for the right person. I'm going to declare who's the right person. That is basically it. Claudette Singh now has the right to declare who is the right person, not by your vote, but by her initiative, or I can't say initiative, by her epiphany. She sits and thinks who's the right person now to represent Guyanese, although an electoral process happened and gone. And she knows whatever she says, the courts has to adhere to it, because she has the rights. It's a fact. She now has the right. And you can't challenge her. How dare you? You have no rights to challenge her. Brothers and sisters, in this place that you call the corporate Republic of Guyana, there's no place for those who want to sit down and be quiet. You have to revolt against such oppression. You have to revolt against such voters in disenfranchisement. You have to revolt against people trying to take away your voting rights. Look, they had a place over the river, the PPP supporters block off the road, put a whole lamppost across the road. They sent one policeman. No, they sent a police officer along with unarmed police ranks to try to get the people to move across, move off the road, and move the object that they placed across the road. It was being a black man village, and the people decide to block the road and said they're moving till when the minister come. They will send the riot police, and tear gas would have been shot into the air to disperse the residents, and people would have been shot by rubber bullets, and people would have been shot by pellets. How dare you, you thugs, you hooligans? How dare you stand up against me, who is your master? How dare you? Black people of the black village, how dare you? That's what they're telling you. I challenge you to challenge me because you don't have the resources. I got the resources. How dare you appeal to the appellate courts to ask for your rights to be restored to you, to vote, to have equal rights and justice? How dare you? You're supposed to ask for that. You're supposed to be quiet. But I'm afraid that that's the position most of you are taking. You're quiet about it. Some of you discussed among yourselves, or discussed upon the breakfast table, or discussed around the kitchen table. But that's as far as you go. You have to stand up and let your voice be heard. You got to come out and let your voice be heard. Because believe you me, this election is something else. It is going to be a different side of the coin. Too much money, too much wealth is involved. You believe the PPP is going to give up just like that? They're already trying to secure their place. So even if they win it one way, they got the other way. They're trying to convince the judges on an electoral. As a matter of fact, they're convincing the judges to put the judges in place now, so the judges can have a different interpretation of the law. The judges can have a different interpretation of their judgment. By their minds, they can think what the Constitution is. By their minds, they can sit down and tell you, well, look, this is what they think is good for you. By their minds, they're working you. They're taking away your rights. Guyanese, Guyanese, Guyanese. If you don't wake up, too late shall be the cry. It is time you wake up. It is time you see the real value of things that is before you. Stop being entertained. Stop being pushed to the edge of your seats and think if you must step and jump overboard or if you must step off the plank. Stop going down that All right. It seems to me that it seems to me now that the handiwork is at hand now. Well, I was just booted off, so apparently it is not working in the best interest of me, but the fight shall continue. The fight must and shall and always continue. They know exactly what they're doing. They're trying to muzzle those who are speaking out like me. They're trying to disenfranchise you. They're trying to take away your votes. They're trying to take away your voice. They're trying to do a lot of things. But I'm letting you know now that you have to be vigilant and you have to be always focused. You have to stand up with a revolutionary voice and you have to speak out loud. Let your voices be heard. You have to revolt. But this is another task that will always have to be looked upon as a people. And you have to be edified more on it. Another time, I'm going to talk some more on this because this is a matter that you need to comprehend. I so strongly believe that the decision was made to challenge the appellate court's decision via the Caribbean Court of Justice. And I'm waiting to see what is the outcome. And they're trying to make such decisions res judicata. I realize the word is being used steady now, which means final and infinite, and you can't challenge it back. It makes no sense now you go to the elections court because 5 years have already passed. You have to have another election. An elections petition now it's a slippery slope that you're walking now, Guyanese. It's a slippery slope. And the Guyana Elections Commission, there's no justice in your vote. Your decisions that you make in your vote today or tomorrow would make no sense and would not carry. So please take heed that the next time I come on, we'll be discussing this particular issue. We'll have on that session, we'll open up to phone calls where you can call in and talk about it. I prefer you do so. And let's engage in the discussion. I am Noble Gavin Matthews Bay. I'm happy to be here in this the Dr. Matthews Bay Unfiltered, where we can continue to discuss these matters that are frequent in the corporation in which you live. I want to say to you, stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, and wear a mask. And don't forget the little ones you take into public places. Thank you. Good night, and Cheerios for now.